Shut up and sit down.
Good day, real estate investors. My name is Scott Lurie, and today we are at the Hard Truths podcast, joined by a very talented guest, Donovan Ruffin. Donovan is a industry leader in real estate investing. Donovan has a tremendous following behind his success, not only on social, but in reality. Donovan has visited with myself in the great state of Wisconsin for our Hustle Harder event, and I have enjoyed the friendship with all of the people that were part of those events, but specifically watching Donovan and his tremendous career continue to grow and aspire to be one of our industry leaders. So Donovan Ruffin, thank you for joining me today on the Hard Truths. I am so glad to have you as a guest.
I appreciate you having me, Scott. I really do. Milwaukee is interesting, man. I was because I'm from Toledo initially, so it was the Midwest. The houses kind of look very similar. I guess similar types of developers and stuff like that. So it was cool going back up north and seeing a different part of up north.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Midwest carries its Midwest claws throughout, the Ohios of the world as well. And you obviously, Donovan is based out of Dallas, Texas, and is doing big things in Texas. Donovan, to get to it, the Hard Truth is really about curated for real estate investors that are aspiring to be real estate investors that are already investing, and the W-2 real estate investor who's looking and contemplating real estate. Tell me, how did you get in real estate, man? Where did this come from, and how did you land where you are? And I'd love to just hear a quick background story on Donovan Ruffin.
Yeah. So, like I said, I grew up in Ohio, Toledo, ended up moving to Texas. And then when I was down here in Texas, I was, you kind of like look at a bigger metroplex. And for me, I've always kind of had like kind of little entrepreneur spirit blood in me. And then beyond turning 18, I just immediately kind of went into sales. And, kind of took that route for a couple of years, and I kind of realized I was pretty good at it. And then I started building teams and in the marketing company I was with, started my own marketing company. And then one of my buddies actually got into real estate, and obviously, you hear the term real estate and there's big money or big opportunities involved with it. So it was always kind of like on the sidelines looking in, and I was just realizing, I was like, man, how can I really capitalize on something bigger, something more, right? And I think, one of my friends that I personally knew got into it and had a success. He sent me a picture of a check of $18,000 off like a wholesale deal. And I'm like, man, if this guy can do it, I'm for sure going to be able to do it. And that's what kind of pushed me to actually take action in the space. And it was interesting because I was, I had a pretty successful marketing company at the time when I got involved in real estate. And I kind of looked at it from, kind of trying to find my lane within the investing space. And I started really wholesaling. I did a couple wholesale deals, and mostly just to kind of like learn the lingo with minimal risk. But since I was so involved in my marketing company, it was like my full-time job. It took a majority of my time and energy. And I was like, how can I really take advantage of the opportunity in real estate and continue to build my marketing company at the same time? And I really kind of took the approach of being a fix and flipper, essentially. So my main strategy behind doing that was raising private capital, working with lenders, hard money lenders, networking with wholesalers and agents, and then, obviously building a construction team. So those kind of three pillars, capital and financing, and then the acquisition to source the deal, and then the construction aspect of it. I kind of really catered to those three aspects, and it really allowed me to operate in kind of like a passive way while I was working full time in my marketing company. And I had quite a bit of success, right? So started small, and, after you do one, you gain more confidence after every deal, right? And then you just continue to get better at it. Your resources continue to improve. Your network starts to expand. And I was doing quite a bit of fix and flips. And, eventually I ended up shutting my marketing company down and just going full-time real estate, taking my talents to the space. And then I really got heavily involved into the wholesaling aspect of it when I shut my marketing company down. And here we are. We got a staff of over 20 people. We do deals all over Texas now. We're in the Atlantas, the Carolinas, and in some parts of Florida. So it's pretty exciting. Obviously everybody has their own journey, but I'm obviously completely blessed, in all aspects, and I'm very grateful.
So Donovan, let's talk for a minute, because I think I hear this story a lot from our successful podcast conversations. I had a friend that did it, right?
Yeah.
If he can do it, I can do it, right? And we just had that conversation with Justin Colby not too long ago, where he had a friend and he sat on the couch for 9 months, and Donovan had a friend. Donovan was a successful marketing person, would you say? You had a successful career. If real estate never caught your fancy, you would probably be successful in your marketing career today. You would say that yes to that. But you saw a guy who was a friend of yours who sent you a check for $18,000, and that probably put a lot of gasoline on an unknown fire burning somewhere inside of Donovan. Can you tell us a little bit about that drive, Donovan? Because, when you see that check for $18,000 to a guy, to me or to you or to anybody, that's a lot of money, right? 18 G's, 18 stacks. It's like, hey, how do I figure out how I can do that? So tell me about that moment that you said, I want to get in real estate. Because a lot of our listeners today are sitting there saying, I don't have a friend that just made $18,000. I don't know what even the lingo is that you reference. I don't know. I understand wholesaling. I think somebody gets a contract and sells it to someone else and makes some money. I think I understand that side of it. But tell me, what happened at that moment? Because Donovan is now a successful marketer. He's got a successful business. His friend just sent him a text saying, hey, look at this, my friend. I got 18 stacks. And you're saying, watch out. Here comes Donovan, right? So walk us through that, because, you have to have the entrepreneurial bug that you reference is so critical to all of us, right? Everybody has a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit somewhere in them, right? Some people have 1%, some people have 100%. Donovan has 110%. But let's go through this idea of your marketing. You don't know anything about real estate, right? So you see a check for 18 grand, and that check does what for you? Walk us through that, because these guys that are sitting on the sidelines, someone listening today is saying, man, I want to be like Donovan. I want a friend that has $18,000 check, and I want it to motivate me. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit it right on the head. It obviously helps because it just takes belief, right? So it's just like when you actually believe something's possible, the actions that you take to actually do it, you're going to drive through adversity a little bit harder and a little bit more consistently, and you're going to be able to take that adversity, that impact, a little bit more smoother, right? So the spectator. Right. I was kind of like a spectator, just kind of like the fear of the unknown. But, when that actually happened, somebody that I personally knew got involved in the space and had a success. That's when it was just like, it kind of clicked for me, because mind you, like you said, not everybody has that one friend, but like that friend that I had wasn't like somebody I was like best friends with. It was just kind of like somebody I knew personally. Right. And because I knew him personally, I knew he wasn't the coolest person. He didn't get the most girls. He didn't have all the brains in the category. So it's just kind of like, if it like, not like my ego is a little bit higher than his, but the reality was like, man, if this person can do it, so can I. Right. So
the mentality for you at that point is, if this person who I kind of know, my kind of associate, he's a friend, he kind of runs in whatever, right? So he's a guy who's ninjaing in the background, making $18,000 on this wholesale deal.
Yeah,
you better believe Donovan Ruffin's going to come out here with guns blazing and make that $18,000 myself. Is the thesis behind you? So to that individual that's sitting there, it's how do they get started, right? So now Donovan has the motivation. He knows he can do this. Walk us through that first transaction, Donovan, because the first transaction is probably the most important. It probably cost you the most amount of pain. It probably taught you the most amount of the most amount of information that you ever could absorb in 24, 48, or however many hours. Just walk us through that first transaction, because I know you remember it. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah, so I mean, even before the transaction happened, I knew I had to do something, right? I knew I had to start prospecting because, like, in the wholesaling space initially, because that's where I entered. I mean, the reality of it is, it's just sales and marketing, right? So in my marketing company, that's essentially what I was doing. I was just a glorified sales rep or a sales leader building sales teams. So like, I knew I had a skill set where I could sell a higher product with bigger commissions, essentially, right? So, going into the space, and going about the prospecting aspect of it, I was like, I need to find a way to generate leads, right? So it's like, if I can generate a lead, I can close the deal because I had that confidence already, right? So then it was time to take action. So I started with bandit signs, believe it or not. So it's just like, order bandit signs off of dirtcheapsigns.com. They show up in my house. I ordered 100 of them at first. And then I spent, because the marketing company was actually a door-to-door sales company. So I'd go knock doors for 12 hours. And then on Friday, I would spend, 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the night dropping bandit signs. And so my mentality behind it was like, man, I'm spending 4 hours in the middle of the night, lack of sleep, dodging cops, dodging people. And it was just hard work, right? It was labor, right? So I was like, there's no way I'm going to spend this time, this energy and risk my, whatever the risk is behind it and not be able to capture leads, right? So I knew when the leads started coming in, I would cater to those, like the end of my life was coming. Like every lead was extremely, extremely, extremely valuable. And that's exactly what happened. Every single lead that came in, even if they worked for the city, if there were cops, if there were people that were just trying to rent the house, I found a way to just kind of turn those people in like bandit or bird dogs in a way. But the reality of it was just like, I knew I was invested, right? I was investing my time, my energy, and most importantly, my effort, because I was taking action, right? So beyond taking action as far as the marketing approach, now it was time to generate the prospects, right? So I was just kind of like waiting game. As soon as my phone rang, I was on top of it, right?
Yeah. So just to back up for 1 minute for everyone. So most people are aware of what a bandit sign is, but a bandit sign is basically a sign that you post that you see that says "we buy houses" or "we buy," and then a phone number that are either tied to a electrical pole or a stoplight or whatever it might be. So for those that don't understand it, dirtcheapsigns.com is a vessel to buy bandit signs, which when Donovan said he's running from the police, it's not because he was doing anything against the law, except posting bandit signs are illegal. So in most municipalities. So Donovan was saying, hey, I have these bandit signs. But let's not lose sight of what really Donovan's saying, because I think Donovan nailed it really well, as he said the lead. So what he's referencing for us to think about it, when somebody called in off of the bandit sign, that lead was like the fire was going on and we need to all hands on deck, handle this call because this is the opportunity that I'm going to make my wholesale. So walk us through that. So you got a couple leads from your bandit signs was how you got your first deal?
I mean, mind you, this is like 8 years ago, you know, so it was just like every lead was super, super valuable. And I think I was laying bandit signs, like literally I had a system. I was doing 100 a week minimum, and I was doing it maybe 4 or 5 weeks in a row. And I was getting miscellaneous calls here and there. And I finally had a seller lead. So somebody called me and they said, hey, my mom's selling his house. She's getting old. She just can't take care of it anymore. Like, the foundation's fucked. There's no plumbing. And I was so excited. I was extremely excited. I finally got that one motivated seller lead, and I knew I was a sales person, and showed up at the house, suits, ties, the whole shebang, looking super professional. And then I showed up, and then I wasn't the only person there. And there was like 6 other real estate investors there. And, what I come to find out, it was actually a wholesaler that called me. They just acted like a motivated seller. So I was just like, holy shit, like this isn't even like a real thing. But I just kept going. So I started dropping bandit signs again, staying consistent with it. And then again, a seller called me. It's like, hey, I'm in this situation. I'm looking to move to Kansas, and I need to get out of this house. There's still a mortgage on it, and I don't want anything to do with it. So I show up to this house. I remember it was in Garland, Texas. We showed up to the house, and then I shit you not, this house was like caving in on the inside. And just like the previous lead, this lead, there is no plumbing. Like, the plumbing would actually stop under the house. So like, it smelled like absolute dog shit. Like, literally, it was actually human shit. You know what I mean? Terrible. And I ended up getting the house under contract. I had no fucking clue what I was doing. I didn't know what title companies were. I didn't know what contracts were. And I was just like the guy on Google and YouTube. I'm like, I remember showing up to the house or on the way to the house. I was like, holy crap, I'm going to lock up this deal. I don't even have a fuck contract. Right. And then I was like confusing myself on the way there. So obviously, you know, I'm calling my friend. I'm like, yo, what do I do? And then I ended up getting like a 1-page contract. And I remember handing $100 in cash to the seller in earnest money because that was what tied it up. And then I didn't have a title company. I didn't have anything. All I had was a 1-page contract, and my job was to be able to get them to sign the dotted line, and I was going to hand them $100. Once again, in suits, I was so excited, left the house, and then I figured out, I was like, okay, now I got to find a title company. And I ended up,
so Donovan, let's break that down for 1 minute because I think you've touched on a lot of important things. One is you dressed professionally to attend what was going to be your purchase. I think that's important for everyone to understand that. That only builds confidence for you as it relates to the seller, right? The seller realizes that Donovan is serious about what he's doing, and Donovan shows up. Donovan shows up with a 1-page contract. I would personally, and Donovan probably doesn't use a 1-page contract anymore, but I would recommend that you get and educate yourself on the contract because that is an important piece of it. But what everybody probably just missed, and I think is really important, is that Donovan had to give the person $100 because Donovan said that ties up the deal. Well, what that really does is it validates the contract. A contract is only valid by way of execution of the contract and consideration. That's what the earnest money piece of this is, the consideration for the contract. And so Donovan does these things coming off of I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm confusing myself, going to my first buy where the plumbing and the house is in massive disrepair, and Donovan can't be any happier, right? So like, hey, I just gave this person $100. I don't know what I'm doing. I have a 1-page contract, and Donovan leaves there fist pumped, and he's heading home, right? And so Donovan doesn't know what a title company is. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. This is 8 years ago. So 2 things I want everyone to take away from this, and then we're going to hear the rest of the story is, first off, that's 8 years ago. That's only 8 years ago, Donovan, that you started with your first contract. How many deals have you done today?
We're a little over 2,200.
2,200 additional deals since the first contract in Garland, Texas, guys. The purpose of it is if you get off the sidelines, if you get motivated, if you educate yourself, you too can do 2,200 deals in 8 years. It's not an impossible feat. Now, Donovan, we're going to talk about Donovan's team in a little bit and how he's got 20 people working and he's building up, equity cash offers is growing at a rapid pace and he's doing amazing things. But so Donovan, you leave the house, right? So let's go through this. You leave the house, you say to yourself, hey, I just bought the biggest piece of dump I've ever dreamt of. I gave him $100. I have a 1-page contract. Tell us what happens. How do you get to the money? How do you make the money?
So I remember, on Google Maps, I was like title company, and I just searched it, and I called maybe 3 or 4 of them and told them the situation. It's like, you guys work with wholesalers. The majority of them didn't know what it was, which was surprising looking back at it. But I finally found one. It's like, yeah, we specialize in investment properties or whatever. I'll never forget this. This is when I met Scott Horn. I don't know if you know him, probably, but it was actually Scott Horn's title office. He helped me through the process of the contract, and going through the actual transaction, that's when I learned, right? So I'm the type of guy, I like to fire and then aim. And that's just the way I saw the situation. It's like, I'm just going to take action. I'm going to learn as I go. And that's how I learn, right? So it's like a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines having analyst paralysis, like trying to study and trying to know all the laws and stuff. I didn't give a fuck. Like, I just wanted to make a deal happen. And I knew if I took action, eventually I was going to get better. And that's just the way I went about it. So I found the title company, put it under contract, put it on escrow, and now it was time to find a buyer. I had no clue how to find a buyer, but I knew, I think at the time, Zillow told me that the property was worth like $212,000, and I put it under contract for $60,000. So I was like, for sure, I'm going to make some type of money. I just didn't know how to price it. I didn't know how to go about evaluating repairs. So what I did was I just started prospecting for buyers, and I was like, hey, what would you pay for this? And I was just kind of getting their feedback. Because once again, I was firing and then aiming, right? So I was getting feedback on kind of where these buyers were, pricing out their deals and stuff like that. And I realized, I was like, holy crap, these people are fucking sharks. They're just trying to take full advantage of me. And I knew this because now all of a sudden people I was prospecting to were knocking on the door of the seller. They were trying to call them. They were trying to cut me out. And I'm like, yo, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. So like, once again, I learned a lot through this process, but when it was all said and done, I finally found a buyer to come in and pay, I think I was making about $10,000 in assignments, and an assignment fee. And then right before closing, all of a sudden, the buyer didn't have the money. And what I realized was this dude was just trying to daisy chain it to somebody else. And so I was freaking out again. We're at the closing table. It didn't close. Seller's freaking out because they need to get to Kansas. And then all of a sudden, you know, something pops in my brain. It's like, holy, I got to take action. I got to find another buyer. So, you know, went back to the prospecting, and I was only on like Facebook groups and Craigslist at the time. And I finally found somebody serious. And it was a young lady and her husband that they owned a construction company. They ended up buying it. And I made $2,000. I made $2,000 in assignment fee. And it wasn't about how much money I made on the first deal. It was just like, hey, I finally did one. And you know, through that process, it wasn't the value in that first deal wasn't on how much money I made, but it was about the experience, it was about the knowledge, and it was about that confidence of just doing one. Because I have this joke, right? So it was very similar to the kind of like, I mean, I literally lost my first deal virginity, right? So I don't know if you remember when you lost your virginity, but after you lose your virginity, it's like, holy shit, I want to do this over and over and over and over again. And that's exactly what happened to me. It's like, you know, you're freaking out, you don't know all the situation, but like once it happens, then it just becomes like an addiction. And that's what happened to me. I just like got addicted to the process and doing more of it. And I just wanted to continue to do more and more and more of it.
Yeah. They have a word for that. They're called deal junkies. And I think all of us that do a deal and get into the deal flow, become deal junkies. So I'd like to just do a quick recap because I think it's important. You said a bunch of interesting, terms. So first of all, I think it's most important that Donovan left his first transaction, one of 2,200 today, making $2,000. Many people would call that a failure. Many people would hang up their hat. Many people will go home, take their toys out of the sandbox and run home and go back to being a marketing company. They never would do another real estate deal again because the stress level, the pain, the education experience, the educational cost to only get $2,000 at the end of all of that sometimes would harm somebody to the point of no return. And so I only want to motivate to say, that was one, guys. That was one that gave Donovan the expertise, the fire, the motivation to do 2, 3, 4, 2,200. Now, you said two things in this thing. You said, oh, all of these guys were sharks and snakes, which is called real life, right? People in real life are out there trying to harm you. They want to make good for number one, and number two doesn't matter. And so they were out there trying to go direct to that seller. That was what you did. And so part of your job by validating your contract and putting it under escrow is to protect your interest investors. The reason I tell that to you is when you do a deal, if you do it the right way, you're protected. And there are people out there. There are people every day I read on the Facebook groups. Hey, can you believe that my seller, my buyer, who was a good friend of mine, went behind my back to try to do the deal? I'm like, well, yeah, you lost a good friend and they didn't get the deal because you still have the deal. So be mindful when you're in this business that relationships still matter as a private sector business that we're in. The second thing you referenced, and I just want to share, is daisy chain. You said daisy chain as a terminology. And daisy chain means that Donovan is going to wholesale it to Jane, and Jane's going to wholesale it to someone else. And that's the daisy chain that Donovan's referencing. And so a lot of wholesalers in their contracts say no daisy chain because they don't want to be responsible, because then you're selling it to another buyer and now there's three people that have to all execute on contract, and that makes things very complicated. And so as a wholesaler, which is obviously the easiest path of resistance, is from your contract to the next person, is important that you're validating the buyer, you're getting meaningful earnest money, you have a valid contract that says, hey, I'm the rightful owner, I have the rights to this asset, you don't, and if you want to deal with it, you deal with me. And so it's very important to protect your world and your ecosystem through that world. So I think that was a great learning lesson and experience to kind of walk through. So Donovan, so now you have your first one under your belt. Your fire's burning. You want more. Tell us what happens now.
Yeah, so I took that $2,000 and I just immediately went and bought more bandit signs.
Okay. So tell me, how many bandit signs, you said you did them for 100 a week. How many bandit signs did you put out? Because we didn't get to talk on this, but did you ever have the moment when you're like, damn, these bandit signs are just not working, and why am I wasting all my money on this? And man, I'm tired of being up at 4 a.m. posting signs and running from the police and doing, there's those dark days that people that are listening to this are experiencing today and saying, man, how does Donovan, where did he get that tenacity and that persistence that after his 12-hour shift of knocking door to door on sales, he was out posting bandit signs? Not 1 week, not 4 weeks. How many bandit signs did you post?
Yeah, which is interesting because, a few years after that, I started like learning KPIs, and I looked back at like my first deal and I ended up spending like $3,500 on bandit signs just to land $2,000. So it's like I was extremely excited to see $2,000 at once without realizing I spent more to get the first deal than what it actually, if I would have looked at it like that, I was like, holy crap, this isn't profitable, and it'll fuck my mentality. But I had no clue. I was just that excited, and I just kept reinvesting, right? And just kind of like believing in the process just because I've seen one done. And I knew $2,000 was just like, okay, it is what it is. We got the deal done. But, these people are doing these numbers. So I know if I keep doing this, I know I'm better than them, or I'm going to continue to grow to be better, and the money's going to come, right? So I immediately took that $2,000, bought more bandit signs. And, I think I was going from like 100 a week to about 200 every week. And then I realized I was like, holy crap, I can't do all this by myself because, 200 bandit signs in a single night, you're going to be out all night. And I was doing that for a couple of weeks. And then I landed another deal. I think it was $17,000. My second deal was 17 grand. And at that point I started to hire people to help me drop them.
So that's the point when you got the 17, that's when you said, okay, I have a business that I'm going to, I have a concept that can be a business that I'm going to now professionalize into the business, which is equity cash offers. What is today equity cash offers? Is that a true statement?
Yeah. And equity cash offer was launched like, maybe 5 years ago. So I was operating on, just single-handedly by myself and just exporting the labor. So I found some guys, they actually called my sign. They're like, hey, we were calling you because to let you know we drop bandit signs, and if you need help with them, we charge 75 cents per drop sign. And I was kind of doing the math, and I was like, man, it definitely beats losing sleep, right? So I was essentially buying some of my sleep back, and that's literally what I saw of it when I was going to hire these gentlemen to drop these bandit signs. Because I'm like, man, if I look at it, it's okay. It costs me $200 every Friday on top of what the cost of bandit signs are. Worst case scenario, that's a win because at least I can sleep, right? And me being in sales at the time, it's like I just got to make up for that in the meantime just to be able to win my sleep back so I can do more sales in my current job so I can continue to operate and run the real estate kind of like on the side. You know what I mean?
You got to love America though. There is a entrepreneur behind everything. A guy's business is dropping bandit signs for 75 cents a pop, who gets paid on Friday from Donovan $200, and Donovan values that $200 so the guy can sleep. You gotta love everything about that whole statement. So, okay. So you started hiring. Let's fast forward from year one to essentially 5 years ago, where equity cash offers started. So when we started this podcast before we were recording, you kind of gave me a little bit of insight of the operation. You've got 20 people there. Tell us how many people are on acquisitions, how many are on dispo. Do you have people on off market versus on market? Are you only taking inbound calls? Are you doing any other marketing and creativity? Do you have dialers going out? Give us equity cash offers. If I walked into your office today, what am I seeing?
Yeah, so we actually have 12 people that are just in sales, right? So we have 6 people in acquisitions, and we have another 6 people in disposition. So it's like 50-50. Now, mind you, this is because the market has changed drastically in the past couple, or I guess in the past year, because we used to only have 1 dispositions and 12 acquisitions. But now in today's market, it's a little bit tougher to move deals. So now we have kind of 50-50, and the goal is to continue to reinvest in the dispositions. But anywho, out of the 6 acquisitions that we have, 3 of them are on in-house acquisitions. So we got a guy on PPC who works PPC leads, and then the other 2 people, they work the cold call leads. So after the VAs vet them, they come through our system, then they start doing the follow-ups and the drips and things of that nature. And then we have another 3 acquisition people that they only work with other wholesalers, just because we have a pretty good brand and people need help moving their deals and things of that nature. So, they kind of work with the wholesalers in our direct network and help other people move their deals. And then on dispositions, every disposition agent is kind of redeveloping relationships with new buyers, because that's the biggest thing I've learned in this business. I've been in this business a long time, and I've realized people come and go all the time, but the people that stay, people have a full commitment that they're going to be in this business forever, and they're honest, and they understand that their brand is everything, because as soon as you do one deal bad, everybody's going to know about it. People think that you could just fly under the radar and do sketchy shit, and those people never last in this business. So that's the biggest thing I've learned, is the relationship side of it, because when you get into the B2B space, and that's what I see dispositions is, these people are going to be constantly doing repeat business with us, right? And the same thing on the acquisition side, on the JV side of it, is another B2B approach to it. It's like these people are going to constantly do business with us. Now, granted, the deal size is significantly smaller versus us going direct to seller, business to consumer. But, over time, those little base hits add up over time, and we start building a book of business on both sides. So, understanding that the brand is everything and the network is everything, and relationships, that's kind of the way I see the majority of our staff is. We are employing these people to generate more relationships for our brand and for our company. And that's exactly what they do all day. As they're prospecting, they're constantly building relationships with new people, new individuals, new customers who we can constantly do business with.
Tell me. So having people now acting as Donovan would be acting, where do you spend your time, Donovan? What's keeping your fire alive? Where are you spending Donovan's energy right now? Is it on the acquisition side? Is it on the dispo side? Are you more working on the business right now? What is occupying Donovan's day? Yeah,
obviously we have a lot of moving pieces to our ecosystem is what I call it. We have, we do education too, but, we also host RIAs, free events. Outside of just our sales reps, we have 2 transaction coordinators to help us. And I have a VP to help with all the sales people. We have a full-time media person. And obviously we have education company too. So with fulfillment side, we have 2 people there. So, the types of personalities in the team, I see my job as essentially kind of working on the business, but most importantly is just like looking for the next big thing, right? So we moved into the commercial space, and I was heavily involved with that for about 6 to 9 months until we can actually put some people in place in that realm. So not only just do we do single family, but we also do commercial properties. And as we continue to grow, I'm spending the next 6 months kind of like in the education side of it to make sure that's rocking. And then beyond that, we're going to move more into lending and things of that nature. So as far as what I do on the day to day, obviously, since the majority of what we do is sales and marketing, a lot of it is very, very heavily, people, dealing with people and dealing with team members and, dealing with leaders, especially, it's where I spend a majority of my time is, okay, how can we find the best talent, right? So we're constantly looking for new talent all the time. And I believe that's kind of one of my specialties is just kind of looking for the right person for the right seat. And it's like a real time task where we're constantly hunting for the next best person that we could possibly bring onto the team. And then obviously coordinating, obviously we have KPIs and SOPs and things of that nature, but the reality of it is just, when we bring people on, what I've realized is we could have the systems in place, the markets in place, the marketing, and, everything in line. But if these people aren't believing in themselves, these people don't believe in what they're doing or have confidence behind it, even outside of training, it's just never going to get done the way it should be. So a lot of what I do is as a salesperson or a leader is essentially kind of showing people the vision and convincing people of what's possible, but most importantly, really truly proving to them of what is about to happen, right? So, it kind of translates, hey, when you're convincing somebody to do a deal with you versus, hey, you're convincing somebody to believe in themselves, it's just kind of a completely different spectrum, right? So, even beyond that, it's even outside of our company, I'm kind of looking at the industry in total. It's just like, a lot of people are going different directions, right? Just because the market's changing, a lot of bitches are just completely going a different direction. But I'm realizing the industry needs leadership, right? So even beyond outside of our company, I'm working and collaborating with a lot of different people so that way we can continue to lead the space. And I've been kind of working on that for about a year and a half, 2 years, just because I knew this time was coming. Right?
Yeah, and I'd say to you, thank you for doing that. You know, the industry gets sometimes a bad rap for many different reasons, and the magnitude of those reasons is traditionally due to fraud or traditionally due to unethical behavior. And you know, being able to be a successful individual who says, "Hey, there's one way to do it, and it's the right way." Is the only way, and you can make money doing it the right way is a lot of validation to, I think, the industry, and people like you are what the industry needs more of, because we see it all the time, right? You see wholesalers that call. I mean, we all get text messages from everyone. Hey, I got this house, or you're in a Facebook group, and it's like, well, where did that come from, and why are you acting in that irresponsible way? And so I personally appreciate your kind gesture towards the industry, because that's a thankless job that doesn't get paid. It just helps validate our career. So thank you for that. You mentioned one thing that I think's that's very fascinating to me, because when you recruit, or when you're bringing on people, when you're interacting with people, you mentioned having people believe in themselves is a really important piece of it. And I think that's doesn't get enough visibility, because there's a lot of people out there that probably have really good skills that never get brought out during their entire lives because of one of many different reasons, right? And going into the reasons, I don't know if it's going to be fruitful, but I think the conversation is, when you bring in somebody, or somebody that comes to, you know, Equity Cash, and they say, hey, listen, I want to be part of your team, and they have a suppressed skill set or suppressed confidence. What are you doing for them? Because, man, that's got to be, you know, there's got to be people out there that just have suppressed confidence, suppressed skills, suppressed sense of worth, suppressed a lot of things. Walk us through that a little bit, because we see that we try to bring out the best in everybody, right? That's part of what I do as a leader of our company. And I want everyone to feel good about things. I want to be able to notice, hey, I think you're having a bad day, and let me pull you aside and say, hey, what's going on? Because life is a crazy space. There's life, there's spouses, there's kids, there's money, there's so many different vices. So walk us through that, Donovan, because I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I think it even starts even before people start with our company. I mean, I think the biggest common denominator that I'm seeing in the real estate space, the real estate investing space, is pride and ego, right? Even me, I fall victim of this all the time, or I continue to get better at it, right? But everybody thinks that they're the best at everything. Everybody wants to be, you know, own 100%. Everybody wants to be the man of CEO, right? So it's just kind of getting people to kind of understand. It's just like, hey, we can do more together as a unit versus what you can do by yourself. And we have real proven concept of what that kind of looks like with really sharp people. So, you know, just kind of like, I always look at it like this. It's not necessarily easier, but it's always more beneficial, you know, when you bring somebody in that already kind of believes in what they can do financially for themselves versus somebody that never got to that point, right? So just kind of having two spectrums of people. Now, granted, we still hire both people because there might be certain reasons why people don't believe that they're worth X amount, but then you have people that already believe that they're worth X amount. They're just in the wrong vehicle, right? So there's two different ways to go about it. So when you're talking to somebody that, you know, they are in a great vehicle, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, mentally, they just never got to that next level just because that click in their brain just never came out of them. And the majority of the reason behind that is just because, you know, when people work for your company, they don't work for just your company. They work for people, right? So just making sure you just kind of take that pride and ego aside to just give somebody a platform to just put gas on it and make a significant income if they actually perform, right? And having proof of concept helps a lot. But, you know, when you're first starting in that journey, or, you know, start bringing sharp people on, you have to really, it's not like you can just hire somebody and just forget about them, right? You have to kind of like work with these people individually. So it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do, right? So it's just like, I have this clear saying and understanding where it's just like, you know, one of your best people is going to do 70% of what you're capable of doing. And if you get to a point where you stop growing, you stop learning, you stop learning new skills, or you stop getting better at what you're doing, what do you think is going to happen to your people, right? And the biggest thing that I've learned with people is people will work so much harder and so much, they'll push through adversity so much easier when you have an opportunity, because people work harder for opportunities than they will just for money, right? So you have to have a vehicle that's bigger than money, right? So, and that's kind of like one of the biggest things that I've learned with people, just because if you just promote cash all the time, once they have the cash, what do you think is going to happen? They just want more cash, right? And when there's no more cash to give, what do you think is going to happen? They're just going to look for something else. But what it really boils down to, especially the people with the best core values, the people that are extremely, extremely talented, and people that want to do good for the world, they work harder for opportunities than for money. Because, if you can do 1% better for the world every single day, what do you think is going to happen a year? That's 356% better of an impact that you're making on the world just because of your existence. You know what I'm saying? So at our company, it's way bigger than just doing deals. It's way bigger than just construction of properties, comping stuff out and having leads and things of that nature. It's just like when you really get into a situation where you can help somebody make a life, big financial decision on their property, it makes a big impact on their lives as well. You know what I'm saying? So getting people into the direction and kind of see being on just survival, I think it helps significantly, right? Because the first step is like, okay, let's get you to a point where you can actually pay your bills. Then the next step is like, okay, let's get you to a point where you can live a good lifestyle. And then beyond that, there has to be something beyond that, right? So that's where it comes to, hey, let's look at the long-term vision of what's going on here, right? So
So Donovan, talking about that, and obviously talking, the world's a lot bigger than what we do on a day-to-day basis from a sales side of it. I think that speaks to a lot of the culture that you have in your company, right? And I think that's not only culture, but the culture resonates to when you're out buying or selling or doing your business. It's not about that moment. It's about the greater moment. And I think that probably really resonates inside of your company with all of your staff and makes them successful, not by the transaction, but by the day, which is a much better metric than, hey, yes, we want to commend you. You just did a wholesale deal and we made $30,000 or $50,000. That's a nice win, but we also saved a lady from her foreclosure and we helped her get into her financial freedom, get out of her financial burdens into financial freedom. And she's happy. And the buyer is going to fix and flip it and going to do a really nice job on the transaction and going to improve the housing stock in Garland, Texas, or wherever the heck the transaction is. And the overall scope of that transaction is way bigger than your one wholesale fee. So that's a very, I don't want to say mature as if we're in a different game, but it's a very mature thought process that I think resonates in culture-wise to say, hey, not only do we want to do this, and we look at that from our lending platform, right? When we see our borrower send us rehab pictures from their finished rehab, from what it was to what it went to, you're like, wow, this person did amazing. You're like, I want more of those people. And so those are our moments here, similar to yours, that are, hey, listen, yes, we wrote a loan, and yes, they closed on the loan, and yes, the borrower made money, but man, they took a piece of poor housing stock and made it what it was going to be, and the whole ecosystem behind it has benefited. And I think that ideology is very respectable, and thank you for sharing that. One thing I get marveled in is how does a team like yours get trained, right? Like how are you teaching these folks, Donovan, who probably come with you with some experience, no experience, suppressed personality? How do you get that out of them to train them to say, hey, you know nothing about real estate, you know nothing, and now I'm going to teach you this lingo? Do they go through a training program? Are they following Donovan for 24, 48, 3 weeks out? What happens? Walk us through your sales programming, and then I want to touch on your mentorship program. You're coaching right now. You said education, so you're doing some coaching. Yeah. We'll talk about that in 1 minute, but share with us, if you can, about how you bring in your team and how you train them.
Yeah, well, I guess for me personally now, it just kind of works a lot different than when I first started. So I can kind of explain it to 2 areas because not everybody's in my position. But I realized, in my position now, a lot of people just kind of see my lifestyle and see what I'm doing, and they just kind of expect that to happen if they come be a part of the team, and that's just not the reality, right? So, but on top of that, I'm not going to be managing these people full time. I'm not going to be training them full time. I'm not going to be keeping them accountable and doing all the miscellaneous stuff, hanging out with them outside of work and things of that nature. So what I've realized is these people need direction. They need leadership. They need training. So we have leaders within our company that they do all the way from the initial recruit, that initial phone call, all the way up to the interview. The manager is going to be doing that process depending on the division, because that's who's going to be spending the majority of the time with that individual. So when I say I spend a lot of time with the leaders, I'm teaching them and coaching them, constantly, multiple times a week. How can we get better at training? How can we keep people's mentalities at a par? What times do we need to check in? How do we coach them in between calls? Because, like I said, I'm a fire and aim type of person. That's literally how we start people, right? Our leaders, our managers are hiring people in their first day after they sign new hire paperwork. They're immediately putting them on the phone, right? They're not teaching them anything about comps, nothing about wholesaling, nothing at all. The only job that they have is to go connect with people and find motivation. That's it, right? And when you do that, then you're going to start to learn the process, right? So that's the first day. They're just kind of, the manager is making 5 calls, the new person's making 1 call. The second day, the new person's making 5 calls, the manager is making 1 call. Now, every call in between each call, they're kind of raising that personality, or they're coaching in between every call, because the mentality when you start somebody is just like, they just expect to be successful off the first call. And that's just not the reality of things. It takes time. And we both know, like in our space and in our model, it takes like, anywhere from 90 days almost from when a lead hits or when you first contact somebody to when it closes in the bank. So it's going to take a while to even build your pipeline, to even get a deal under contract. You know what I'm saying? But we're very thorough on setting proper expectations when people start, and they kind of expect that, just because the whole purpose or the whole goal when people first start, especially for that first month, is just to keep that mentality of line and help them through adversity, because it's a prospecting game, right? So all of our salespeople, the whole purpose behind their jobs is to prospect all day. You know what I'm saying? And the more we can prospect, the better that they get after every call. And that's the goal. So the first 2 days is just working with their mentality in between every call. And then beyond the third day, then they're on it full time. And then the manager is still constantly paying attention to every single call when they're on the phone, coaching them in between calls, making sure that mentality is in place, coaching them, hey, you should have said this instead of this. Hey, this is what you should have said, or you say this next time, delete this out of what you're saying. And it's different depending on division, right? So if it's in acquisitions, it's different. If it's in JV, it's different. If it's in dispositions, it's different, right? So it just kind of depends on the division that they're in, but it's still fire and aim. That's on the job training is kind of.
Yeah, you said fire and aim really defines your risk profile, right? So Donovan is a high confident individual who says, I'm going to fire and then I'm going to go solve my problems, right? And so so that's his mindset, and that's the mindset he's teaching over at Equity Cash Offers. And so I think people have to understand, you have to have a risk profile on the spectrum, and Donovan's risk profile is high, Donovan's reward is high, but it takes a lot of energy and market knowledge to, when he fires before he aims, he might miss. And so, but Donovan knows how to get out of that miss like other people do as well. And so I think that's really a critical piece of it. Donovan, you mentioned, and thank you for all that information. I guess I have one last quick question pertaining to that. How many of the people that you're bringing in, when you're setting the expectations that it's a 30, 60, 90, how many people are leaving after a week saying this isn't for me?
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality of it is I used to hire anybody and everybody, right? Okay. When I first started, I mean, that's because how my last business, it was just like my full-time job was to recruit as many people as possible to go knock doors, right? So I kind of translated that into the real estate space, and I realized it doesn't work. I mean, we had a staff of over 45 people in the office at one time, just all commission, but that's just the reality it's just not a reality of it working or not working when it comes to culture and team building, people being here long term. So we have a really good retention, to be honest with you, just because we're really good at vetting people. We're really good at making sure people have the proper core values. We're really good at the training process. So on top of that, we pay salaries too, which significantly helps our retention. It's not like we pay people a lot in salary, but we don't want people worrying about paying their rent or their car note up until it's their first deal closed, which is going to take like 6 months. You know what I mean? Sure. So those things help, like, the salary and the training, that approach helps significantly. But to be honest with you, we don't really have a retention problem. In fact, like a majority of people have been here a few years. Obviously we're bringing new people on here and there, but our newest person's maybe like 2 months old. And people do quit. People see opportunity somewhere else, and unfortunately, they don't see kind of the vision of what the company is doing, and it does happen. We have lost 2 people in the past 9 months. And I take that personally. I always reach out to those people and make sure that everything's good and how I can improve as a leader, what I can do better the next time, and what were the real reasons why they quit, and making sure that vulnerability is down and that ego is down so I can get real feedback. And that way I can take it and continue to improve even within my staff. So I think that is extremely important. I think a lot of times people quit in their company and they just never talk to those people again, right? I think a lot of people quit in the company, and the reality of it is they had no business of hiring that person anyway because they don't give a fuck. They don't care about those people. And in the reality, it translates to the energy when you're training. You know what I'm saying? So it's just we're really we aren't hiring people for a temporary job. This isn't like what do you call it? Like something temporary. This isn't like a part-time thing, right? This is a real career. Like if you don't have any intentions of working with us in 5 years from now, please don't even start with us, right?
Yeah, and that's probably the best point is that you view this as a career for them. They need to view it as a career. You're making investment in them by way of salary versus 100% commission. You want them to feel good about it. You recognize that it's going to take them 6 to 9 months to get their first transaction, get their first commission check. And so all of that, I think is really building the fundamentals of a real business, which is what our industry probably lacks. Because as you said, door-to-door sales, they hire anybody that's willing to walk on the streets and go knock the doors is somebody that they want. And if they kill something, they eat. If they don't, well, have a good day. All right. So at the sake of running out of time, I'd like to just touch on, you started as a door-to-door sales guy. You mentioned education is important to you, and you're working on some education program that'll be part of your business. Talk to me briefly, high level. So you're doing some education out in the world where you're helping other potential real estate investors learn how to do real estate investing. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of realized, I don't really see it as like me doing all the coaching and stuff because we have courses, we have, other programs, but what I kind of realized is me personally, I like to be a part of an environment where I can also learn. And I kind of position it where we just kind of launch the mastermind where we take, people that have operating businesses and we just kind of come together and share our kind of best secrets with no fluff, no cap or anything like that. So that's kind of what I've been working on, is just kind of developing that mastermind and we're doing good so far. And, to be honest with you, we have done a lot of education stuff in the past, and it's just kind of like what position is the best approach to go about it. And what I'm realizing is there's a lot of different programs out there. There's a lot of people coaching. There's a lot of people doing everything. And you just kind of have to kind of pick your poison on what you can do best at. And that I've realized I'm not the smartest person in the industry. I know I'm not like the biggest, baddest person. Like, I mean, Scott, you probably got more in the bank than I do probably for a while. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality, but being able to connect like people like you know what I'm saying? That's how we are able to improve and get better. Right. So, I think, being in a position where it's just like, I kind of see it as similar to how I like to recruit people is like, I want to attract people that are way better than me. Right. I want to attract people that have different skill sets beyond what we're currently doing. So that way there's just new information, new skill sets that are coming into it. And I believe that's what makes masterminding very powerful because I'm a product of masterminds myself. You know what I'm saying? As far as like the entry level stuff, of course, we have free events, we have courses and things of that nature. And there's a lot of individuals out there that really cater to that type of coaching. And there's great products out there. We do RIAs every single month in different parts of the company or in different parts of the country where people can just come for free, network, gain allies, gain resources, gain connections, and learn new information. We don't even charge anything because, like I said, Scott, this is bigger than money for us,
For sure.
And I'm a firm believer in, leader, like in order to be a leader or in order to continue to grow, especially in the position of our company, I know we have to put new people on. I know we have to teach the industry new different skill sets, different resources, and bringing those people together. I know if nobody else is going to do it, people like Scott, you need to get up and do that, and you guys are doing a great job, especially with the Hustle Harder event and stuff like that. So, lot of respect for you guys up there for making it happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I agree with you, right? So I always try to invest time, energy, and effort. I always try to be accessible to whoever it is that's in a dark place trying to get started, and hit some roadblocks, because it takes a little bit of encouragement. I remember when I started, I didn't have encouragement. I didn't have anybody. I just had myself, and I knew that I was going to win. That was just a requirement. So I want to just, Donovan said, and this is the truth, there are RIA events that are for free all over this country. And so if you're a real estate investor listening to this in Idaho or in Minnesota or Wisconsin or in Texas or anywhere else in this country, and you're interested in real estate, go to the RIA events. They are free for most of them. If they're not free, they're very nominal in charge, a couple of bucks, $10. You get to network with people. You'll meet people that are involved in real estate. I used to go to the RIAs. When I first started, I would show up at the RIAs. I was wholesaling at the RIAs because there was another investor there. This is before they had the internet. We were going out there and saying, hey, who wants to buy 123 Main Street? Because I have it under contract, etc. And so I think that's really a great advice. I would encourage everybody, network with like-minded people. Donovan just mentioned, he's working on education, which is a mastermind, which is basically putting a bunch of smart people in rooms that have different asset class in terms of masters of education or smartness of certain different categories that all can impact each other's business. Because Donovan's business is a sales business, but Donovan also has to know how to do accounting and management and tax abatement and tax planning, etc. And so talking to a guy who does that for a career as the mastermind, putting those people together really probably helps all of us. And so Donovan, that's amazing. We're running out of time here, and I'm grateful. But before I let you go, Donovan has an unbelievable web presence. Specifically, Donovan has a great social platform. I enjoy watching your social platform. I feel like I know your kid. I feel like I know a lot about you. I will get to see your lifestyle. I love Donovan just prized himself with a successful new car as a result of all of his hard efforts. I wish it was in black, but I'm not mad at you. So understand. I'm a black mat guy. I just the way I am. But rocking out the white Rolls truck, I salute you. I commend you. I love it. I love seeing your little child in the back of it. I'm sure it's one of those things that not only do you enjoy, but it reminds you of all your hard work that you've done to get to where you are. Donovan, yeah. I as a industry individual like you are, I applaud your success. I applaud that you are a leader in our industry. I'm thankful for your time. Donovan, can you tell our audience how they can follow you, find you, and learn more about Donovan Ruffin and Equity Cash Offers, please? Can you tell us how we can get to you?
You could just Google me, Donovan Ruffin. I'm on Instagram, the Donovan Ruffin, Facebook. I'm kind of all over the place, and it's kind of like a marketing approach, right? So it's just like there's pros and cons, right? And I'm kind of like learning certain things. It's like, man, I can only do so much myself, and a lot of people are like, you need to push more content, but the reality of it is, it's just like I can't do everything myself. So it's just like you're going to see a lot of content, between all of my different businesses, and the reality of it is, it's just like I know I can't do it by myself. I have to put other people on as well. Because it's not just about me, it's just like I've helped a lot of people get to a lot of amazing places in this world, and I've never asked for anything. It just kind of comes back tenfold, right? So if you're kind of like looking at a certain lifestyle, you have to understand, there's more than 10 years of no guarantees, right? There's more of 10 years not charging a penny for anything and just expecting nothing in return. There's more of 10 years of real hard adversity that nobody sees and nobody will ever see, just because that's just the reality of entrepreneurship. So it's always going to be hard. And I look forward to hard. This podcast is the hard truths, right? That's the reality of it is it's never going to get easier. You're just going to get better, right? You're never going to find that one person. You're always just going to strive to meet more people and connect with a higher level of thinking, and proximity just continues to increase. So, that's one of the beautiful parts about entrepreneurship, is, especially for me, it's just like when, I guess you kind of look at it from a control aspect. It's just like, I never want somebody to tell me how much I'm worth. I want to tell myself how much I'm worth. Right. And I know at the beginning of the podcast, you said, hey, how does this W-2 employee look at entrepreneurship and just go full blast, especially in the real estate space? That's exactly how I saw it. Right. It's like, man, I don't want to cap out off my time. I want to be able to be in a position where I can like make significant moves and significant impacts. And yeah, money is great, but beyond money, you know, they always say money is not the greatest thing in the world. And that's just the reality, because you have to find different meetings of going about doing certain things that's going to continue to push you personally. And it has to be more than money. Of course, like, you can be a hustler, you can work hard, but you know, you're going to get to a point when you make good enough money where you aren't struggling financially anymore. And then you have to like look at what's next. And if you can think about that bigger aspect in your brain and your soul and your heart, you know, I think people are going to get there a lot faster. And if I can leave anybody with that, I mean, you know, find something that's going to keep you moving and it doesn't pay you, right? And a lot of people find themselves in different situations because the reality of it is, you know, everybody's got their own race, but, you know, how are you going to go to sleep tonight knowing that you made a better impact on the world, right? Financially or not financially, right? A lot of people just continue to look at the financing aspect because of the position they are in the world. But I'm telling you right now, if you find a way to wake up and go to sleep every single day and provide better for the world without asking for anything in return over time, it's just going to pay you back tenfold. And that's what it has done for me in life.
That's an amazing statement. I appreciate that. It's money is a driver, but not the only driver in Donovan Ruffin's life. Donovan's out doing great things. Please find Donovan on Instagram. Please follow Donovan. Please follow Donovan's business and his journey. Donovan does a great job conveying. Donovan, on behalf of myself, Scott Lurie, and the Hard Truths podcast, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I'm grateful for the messages, the lessons you shared with us, for our audience. And thanks again for being on the Hard Truths. I hope you have a great day, and we'll follow up soon.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.